Hi everyone, it's Jake and Caroline from GSA. This presentation covers mental health, specifically anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. According to the National Institute of Health, 1 in 3 teens have an anxiety disorder. However, this diagnosis has been steadily rising even more and went up 20% within the past decade.
So anxiety can affect anyone. It comes with many causes and symptoms. Anxiety can become a serious mental disorder when it interferes with daily living, causing intense avoidance of situations and people. It also causes excessive and persistent worry and fear, and it can occur during public speaking, taking a test, or simple social situations. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, they say that anxiety disorders are highly treatable, yet only 36.9% of those suffering receive treatment. They also say that people with anxiety disorders are 6 times more likely hospitalized for psychiatric treatment than those who don't suffer from anxiety. And then these are just some cartoons that better depict what anxiety looks like in the real world.
So next, 20% of teens experience depression before adulthood, according to a study from Psych Central. However, only 30% of these people are being treated for it. So being depressed does not equal being suicidal. Depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain, causing chronic negative thoughts and feelings that affect daily life. Depression does not have one single cause. It can be triggered by trauma, genetics, life crises, and much more. Loss of interest in activities, isolation, low self-esteem, doubting self-worth are just a few of these symptoms. Keep in mind, like I said before, that depression does not equal suicide or self-harm. However, depression can lead to these actions and behaviors. So these are just some more cartoons that show what feeling depressed may be like. Again, feeling depressed is different for every person who experiences it, but these are just some examples.
Okay, so according to J. Archelaus, they found that there was a 10% mortality rate for individuals with anorexia nervosa, making it the most fatal mental illness. So eating disorders, not all people who are anorexic are skinny. Eating disorders are a wide range of psychological conditions that cause unhealthy eating habits to form. It might start with a simple concern with weight or body image and spiral into an unhealthy obsession. Those suffering can have a range of symptoms depending on what type of disorder they have. Common symptoms are severe food restriction, binges, purging, and dehydration, and anyone can have an eating disorder. It does not have to just be girls. And then these are just some important reminders that your body is no one else's business, and that if you feel you are suffering an eating disorder, we have some great hotlines to share with you.
So here are some of those hotlines. The top hotline is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. This is extremely important for everybody going through any of these things. Eating disorders, depression, anxiety, or anything else. The middle hotline is the crisis text line. Text home to that number listed. And the last hotline on the bottom is for NEDA, the National Eating Disorder Association. The next topic is home life, how social and cultural impacts mental health.
Okay, so we just have some positive versus negative impacts that home life can have on your mental health. For positive impact, when a family relationships are stable and supportive, a person suffering from mental health issues or disorders may be more responsive to treatment. Companionship, emotional support, and often even economic support can have a positive impact on someone coping with a mental health problem. Increasing for negative impact, and increasing body of research demonstrates that negative family relationships can cause stress, impact mental health, and even cause physical symptoms. Okay, so specifically for Asian American households, according to the National Latino and Asian American Study, Asian Americans are less likely to seek treatment when compared to European Americans. Most Asian American children feel the need to fit into American social standards. Most Asian American children also feel that there is a language barrier between their public world and home world.
Next, in African American households, African Americans and Black people are less likely to seek treatment for things like eating disorders, depression, and anxiety than European Americans are. According to a study from the National Mental Health Association in 2007, 63% of African Americans view depression as weakness, and 30% report that they would deal with depression on their own instead of seeking outside help, such as therapy. Next, in Hispanic and Latino households, culturally speaking, most Latino and Hispanic people are open to mental health treatments. However, the barriers in the world that exist for these people are the socioeconomic status and existing language barriers. According to the CDC, 8.2% of Latino youth attempted suicide. Meanwhile, 6.1% of white teens attempted suicide. So you can see there's definitely a big difference. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services researched that Hispanic girls in high school were actually 40% more likely to attempt suicide than non-Hispanic girls were.
Okay, so abuse. There are two main types of abuse, physical and emotional. Physical abuse can include sexual abuse and domestic violence, whereas emotional abuse can include neglect and psychological abuse. Remember, if you are being abused, it is not your fault and there is no right way to feel. Short-term effects of abuse can cause confusion, fear, helplessness, shame, nightmares, and a racing heartbeat. And long-term effects can cause anxiety, guilt, insomnia, social withdrawals, and depression. And in one study, 80% of 21-year-olds who reported childhood abuse met the criteria for at least one psychological disorder. Okay, so some pretty sad statistics. In the United States, more than 4 children die from child abuse and neglect on a daily basis. 70% of these children are below the age of 3, and 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18.
So, as I did before, here's more hotlines. The top hotline is a domestic violence hotline. The one in the middle is the hotline for NAMI, you may have heard of it, or the National Association of Mental Illness. And the hotline on the bottom is for DBSA, the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. So the stats, how do all of these mental health crises affect the LGBTQIA+ community?
Okay, so according to a study at the UCLA School of Law, LGBTQ+ adults are 2 times more likely to have a mental health condition than heterosexual and cisgender adults. According to a 2015 survey by Gleason, 85% of LGBTQ+ students have faced verbal harassment. According to the CDC in 2015, 60% of LGBTQ+ youth felt so helpless that they stopped doing activities they loved. And according to the Trevor Project in 2019, LGBTQ+ youth who experienced discrimination regarding their sexual or gender identity were 2 times more likely to attempt suicide.
In a survey conducted by the Trevor Project in 2020, 40% of all LGBTQ+ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. In addition, more than half of transgender and non-binary youth reported the same experience. So the majority of transgender and non-binary minors considered attempting suicide. According to the same survey by the Trevor Project, 48% of all LGBTQ+ youth reported engaging in self-harm in the past year. This included more than 60%, so again, the majority of transgender and non-binary youth.
In the 2 weeks prior to that survey, 68% of LGBTQ+ youth exhibited symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder, including 3 in 4 of transgender and non-binary youth. According to the same survey, 46% of LGBTQ+ youth reported they wanted psychological counseling but were unable to get it. And 29% of LGBTQ+ youth experienced homelessness, being kicked out, or even running away.
Of those who took this survey by the Trevor Project, 10% of all LGBTQ+ minors reported undergoing conversion therapy. Of those, 78% reported that it occurred when they were under the age of 18, so again, minors. 6 out of 10 of LGBTQ plus youth reported that they had someone in their life try and convince them to change their identity and try to convince them that they were invalid just for being who they are. Back to suicide, unfortunately, of those who attempted suicide, 19% had this experience, like I just mentioned, happen to them, and 35% of these people noted that it was a parent or caregiver who tried to convince them to change their identity and that they were invalid.
According to the survey, 1 in 3 of LGBTQ plus youth reported they were physically threatened or harmed in their lifetime because of their identity. And in addition, 86% of LGBTQ plus youth said that recent politics negatively impacted their mental health. As well, 61% of transgender and non-binary youth who did the survey reported being prevented or discouraged from using the bathroom that corresponds with their gender. Transgender and non-binary youth who had their pronouns respected by all or most people attempted suicide at half the rate of those who did not.
So we have some more hotlines that specifically cater to LGBTQ plus people. So the one on the top is for the Trevor Project, the people who did this survey that we mentioned. The one in the middle is the Pride Institute, and the one at the bottom is the LGBT National Hotline. So those are a lot of harrowing statistics, but they're important to share and educate everybody. To end things on a positive note, we do celebrate mental health awareness every single year, specifically on October 4th to October 10th and all of May, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. The green ribbon is a symbol that represents awareness and support for mental health, and the goal is to spread positivity and end the stigma around mental health. However, it's also there to help those who struggle with mental health. Just remember, it's okay not to be okay, and asking for help is never a sign of weakness. Thank you for listening.